Long exposure. One of the coolest effects you can make with a camera. Probably seen photos like these and thought, wow, it really is cool, isn't it? But what if I told you that it is really not that hard to take, and you can actually even take it with your phone? Well, today I'm gonna show you how you do it. Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're new around here, my name is Nikolaj and I'm a photographer based in Denmark. So a couple of weeks ago I took this photo and I think it turned out really sick. And then I uploaded it to my Instagram and all the people on Instagram seemed to like it. So I thought maybe I should show you how you can actually take photos like these very easily. And I'm both gonna show you how I take it with my camera, which is gonna give the best result just because of the sensor in the camera, but also how you can do it with your phone. But before we actually go out and shoot, I am gonna explain a bit about how and why we're actually able to shoot like this. So let's get into paint and I will actually show you why it is possible. So, the idea with a long exposure photo is to not capture a single frame or a single moment in the time that you normally do with a normal photo, but instead it is used to capture everything that's happening over a longer period of time. So let me try to explain what actually happens inside the camera when you take a long exposure photo. So, here we have a camera. This is a Sony camera. And inside this camera there is a sensor. And around the sensor, that's where you attach the lens. So this is what the camera looks like. And in front of this sensor, there is something called a shutter. And that's what you control the shutter speed. The shutter speed controls how long time the shutter is open for when you take the photo. So let's say you are out taking photos of sports. You want to be having a high shutter speed here. So my camera can go up to 1/8,000th of a second, which means the camera opens in 1/8,000th of a second. But when you're out taking long exposure photos, this shutter right here is open for a longer period of the time. So there is some rules that some people think or say that you should use, which actually is a pretty good starting point. So let's say you're out shooting on a 35mm lens, then they say the shutter speed needs to be double of the focal length, which means you have to shoot at 1/70 of a second. 1/70 of a second. But I think it all comes down to how steady you can hold the camera when you're shooting handheld. But when you take the long exposure photos, you can't really shoot it handheld because you're gonna have the shutter open for a longer period of time. So the photos we're gonna go out to take today, I'm gonna have the shutter open for between 10 and 30 seconds, which means I need to get a tripod, and I'm gonna take the tripod, and then I'm also gonna need to have an ND filter, which just kind of works like sunglasses for your lens, so it makes the whole scene darker. So the reason why you're gonna need an ND filter is because when you open the shutter speed for a longer period of time, you're gonna expose the sensor for a longer period of time and let more light in so the sensor can capture more light, which means the photo is gonna be very bright and very overexposed if you don't have an ND filter, unless you're shooting in pitch black or a really dark scene. But because I know I'm gonna go down to a parking lot today where there is a bit of light, I'm gonna need this ND filter to capture the effect I want. But I think now we know how the shutter speed and how a long exposure photo works. So let's just pack up the bag and actually go out and... Alright, so I have arrived at the spot now, and as you saw in the video before on the B-roll, I parked the car here, so that means when we are standing right here, we have a pretty symmetrical shot of the car, and I think I can make some really nice things with this, which is a light tube, and I'm gonna use it, I don't know, I think it's pretty bright, but I'm gonna use it as light painting. And I think I have an idea where I switch the lights on it, so I'm gonna have to merge 3 photos together, so let's just get right into it. Alright, so I don't know why, but the audio didn't really record here. I was looking at the phone and something messed up. But I'm telling you here that I am shooting on a 30-second shutter speed. So the shutter is open for 30 seconds, and then I'm shooting at f2.8, and because I'm shooting at such a high shutter speed, I'm able to go all the way down to ISO 100. And then of course I'm using the ND filter because it is very bright in there. Alright, so I'm done shooting now, and I forgot to mention one thing, that when you're shooting long exposure, it is a good idea to put it on a timer so it counts down from 2, just because when you press the shutter here on the camera, you can actually make some micro things into the camera that actually is going to ruin the photo. So just put a timer on the photo and you should be good. But I'm just going to quickly show you how you can do this with a phone as well, if you don't have a camera. Alright, so when you're on your phone, I have two methods you can use. The first one is to use an app called Moment that I use, where you can go down here and then you can roll all the way down to a half of a second. The downside of this is you can't really go lower than half a second, so you can't get the best long exposure photo. But I have another method, and that is when you're inside the camera app itself on an iPhone, you can go up here to the live mode, and this has to be turned on. So if I just take a photo here and I've moved it around a bit, you can see if I go into the photo here, I can press up in the corner there, and then there is one called long exposure. And this isn't the best test because I didn't have anything to take the photo off here, but it kind of works just as I showed you on the camera. And I'm sure there is 100 different ways you can do it on an Android phone, because I actually have the experience that you can control way more on an Android phone than on the iPhone. I don't know why they've made it like that on iPhones, but just try it out. And if you go on Android phones, I think there usually is a mode called Pro Mode, where you then can control the shutter speed, ISO and aperture by itself. So go try it out, and we're gonna go back home now and actually look at the photos. Alright, so we're back home now, and I've pulled up all the photos inside of Lightroom, and I want to be merging them together inside of Photoshop. So the thing we're gonna do first is to actually select all the photos, go in here and press edit in Photoshop, and then it will pull up all the photos inside Photoshop. So now we are inside of Photoshop, and I want to be having all the 3 different photos inside of the same, so we have 3 different layers. And the way you do this is to press Command A, or I think Control A on Windows, and then copy it by Commanding C, and then Command V inside of another photo. And then we do the same thing for this photo. We now have all the photos inside of here, and then it is actually pretty easy. You select all the 3 different photos, and then you go into this. This is blend mode, and mine is in Danish, but in English it should be called lighten here. And then you press that, and voila, they're all in here merged together. There's just one thing I want to be doing, and that is with this layer, layer 2. I want to make a mask, and that you do by pressing this one. And then I want to be removing these things. So that's pretty much it. Then we press Command S or Control S to save it, and it should pull up in Lightroom automatically. So we are now back inside of Lightroom, and as you can see, the photos here with the adjustments we made inside of Photoshop. And I'm just gonna go through my presets and see if some of them would work, because I know I want to be having a teal and orange look. So let's see if this teal and orange actually work. I think the blues is too bright here. I actually really like this, but we're gonna have to do some adjustments. So first of all, we're gonna crop it, and I think it was just a bit off centered, or it wasn't aligned very good. So we're just gonna crop it here, and then I want to be cropping it for Instagram, so 4x5. Zoom in a bit here, and then I think we have it right there. And I think it's a bit too dark now, so we're gonna up the exposure here, down the highlights, up the shadows. We want some contrast in here, so I'm going to down the blacks a bit here, and actually go inside of this, because I know that I want to have the shadows up a bit more, and right there. so we can actually see what we're working with. And then I think I want to have a more like this orange color, and I actually want to be removing the purple and magenta from the photo, because I just think like this color here is kind of working against the contrast I already have in the photo. Because as I talked about in another video, teal and orange really contrast good with each other and is really pleasing for your eye. So that's why it's so popular to use the edit thing called teal and orange. So I want to be having a bit more blue here and actually put it up a bit, so like that. And then this should be good here. One thing I didn't do that I normally would do is to take actually a fourth photo where the lights are on, and then I could be merging them together with the rest of the photo just to give a more realistic look. But we didn't do that, so we're just gonna have to improvise and kind of make our own headlights here. And it's not gonna be as good as if you did it on the spot, but we kind of just have to work with what we got here. So, not the most optimal way to make the headlights, but I think it works pretty good. And then it's actually just ready to export and upload onto Instagram or anywhere else you want to be uploading it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video, and I'm actually thinking about doing more videos like this where I actually just go out and try stuff and kind of explain to you how I do it. And this is my way to do it. I know there is a lot of different ways to edit your photos and take these long exposure photos, but this is kind of just how I do it. But if you liked the video or found it useful in any way, I would really appreciate if you would consider subscribing to my channel and liking the video, and comment down below if you will, and comment down below if you're going out to try things like this. So that's it from me. I'm out.